Hello, and welcome to Explorations in Herbalism or Curious Herbalism. I am your host, Kenya COVIAK. I hope you can see me. I'm not sure because I can't really see you. My glasses are just, my eyes, everything is just messing with me right now. This would be a great time for eye bright. Eye bright is an herb that is soothing to the eye, and just like it sounds, eye bright, it brightens up, your eye when it's all, yucky and gross and has a lot of stuff in it. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. Fooled you. But we can come back to eye bright another day if you like. No, today we are going to discuss an herb that I absolutely adore. And it's a specific herb that comes around in fall. Many herbs have different times of year that they are most popular, but they bloom most of the summer. But this particular flower does not. And it comes from a very large family. Today we're going to talk about New England blue aster. Blue aster comes from the daisy family. Now, if you know about the daisy family, you know that that family contains many of the superstars of the garden, especially this time of year. And the one that is probably the most popular is the daisy. And people like daisies, but did you know that the sunflower's in there too? Okay, now hold on. I didn't say a sunflower was a daisy, but some of them are in that family. That big, big, big family. I'll tell you something else too. We're going to talk about New England blue aster, but we're really talking about the aster family. There's some things in the aster family that work hand in hand with New England blue aster. Now, before we go any farther, I want to just point out a little bit of something, a little further rather. Number one, I am not a certified herbalist. I am not a doctor, nor am I a certified naturopath. So if you start putting things in your mouth and you get sick, this is your fault and it is not mine. And I am not going to be responsible for that. Look and make sure you listen before you do anything that has to do with eating or drinking anything. And also make sure you research and look and listen and read before you put anything in a salve or in an oil or in an unguent or a liniment on your skin. Because again, the human body has skin, and skin is an organ. It is permeable. It is not like plastic. It is not like vinyl. It's not like a Batman costume. You have to be careful. Uh, uh, I want to point out that I'm not sponsored by Batman, but but you want to always be careful because whatever you put on your body will eventually go through the skin and become in your body. So before you do that, you want to make sure you have no contraindications to whatever it is we are discussing. So today's family that we're discussing again is New England blue aster. New England blue aster blooms unlike the rest of a lot of the daisy family. It blooms this time of year in October, and we're almost past when it will bloom. You'll notice it if you're in Michigan and in other places like, oh, I don't know, New England, that is on the side of the road, usually in the woodline or in disturbed places. Wherever you saw goldenrod this year or ragweed, keep an eye out. You may see New England blue aster. That is not to say that it doesn't grow near mullein. I just haven't noticed it growing near mullein. I wonder if they have beef. But I just I just don't see them growing next to each other. But that just may be the way it grows here. But I really haven't seen that. But I have seen New England blue aster grow next to goldenrod. And you know what else grows next to that? Fleabane. I have seen a lot of fleabane growing near it. Family friends, family affair. Now, the thing about the Astor family is it was held as sacred to many gods and goddesses in many European countries. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you in every country because that would not be true. But many of the countries near the cradle of civilization, hop, skip, and a jump, that's where they would be. Now, for many people who believe in it, It's under the sign of Venus or under the rulership of Venus. And Venus is about love, but Venus is not just about love. Venus is also about feminine things, or the female energy, or the female domain. So, when we look at asters, and we are going to talk about specifically New England blue aster in a moment, we're looking at how it relates not just to energy, feminine energy, and we're going to talk about the magic you can do with it. Now, New England blue aster, I use that in order to help me with my asthma. I am not telling you to use it in relation to asthma. I'm telling you what I use it for. The tops of the New England blue aster, even though it says it's blue, it's closer to a bluish purple. And the center has a really brilliant yellowish orange kind of center. And I just love this plant. You can't miss it. It just sticks out. But did you know that the tops are what I would be using, not necessarily the leaves. You can use the leaves, but the tops are the most potent part. That New England blue aster, it gets sticky. Sticky icky icky. It gets sticky. And the stickier it is, the better it is, especially if you don't have time to break it down into an infusion. You can eat the tops to try to help yourself if you find that your chest is getting a little bit tight. I did not come up with this information all on my own. This is not from my own, experimentation. I got this information from reading and from researching and talking to herbalists. One of my favorite herbalists, who I esteem greatly, is Jim McDonald. And he is here in Michigan. You should take his class. He is actually enrolling people right now in his herbalist class. He is the closest thing to Pan on earth we're probably going to get without the negative side effects as far as plant knowledge goes. So you should check him out if you can. He does not know I just gave him an endorsement. He's just that good. Now, as far as the New England blue aster and the asthma, it helps me. I have a good friend named Tuka Rivers, who, with her farm friends, by the way, she's known as Ganja Granny. Um, she takes the New England blue aster and they make an extract. And I believe that that extract is made with vodka. I could be wrong. And I use it, I take a teaspoon of it. Woo, it's strong. And it helps me with my asthma and it opens things up. It opens those tubes up for me. And it's a beautiful thing. But what does this have to do with magic? Okay, so bone set, which is also part of the aster family. Bone set is actually used in order to open up roads. It's used to remove blockages and things that may have been cast into the way or onto the way. You know who you are. But did you know that the New England blue aster, being a precious herb and sacred to many goddesses, is also one of those herbs that you use after you open up the way or if there's no blockage? Because this is the herb you use for beginnings. And you wouldn't think that considering it's coming around in fall at the end of the last death harvest area. Remember, Halloween time or the blood moon, that's the death harvest. Scorpio, get your groove on. But yeah, so this is when it pops up. This is when it has come about, that Scorpio moon. So it's coming along not to end, but it's something you would use at the beginning of a project, at the beginning of something, because something has to end before a new thing can begin. You see how that works? One of the things it's also used for is when you're having to do with things having to do. Oh, that don't say having to do again. We can have a drinking game for that. Another association it has, if that sounds better, is for women and girls when they have their first menstrual period or menarche. It's something you give them as a celebration and as a gift. And you might mix it with raspberry. But guess what? That is also the beginning of another thing. And there's a blood harvest in there. So I'm really beginning to dig on this association with blood and harvest in the beginning of things when it comes to aster. Aster was also placed on altars very often, so that's another thing you could do to begin a prayer, a devotion, or a new spiritual life, you would definitely use aster. Asters, you can definitely use blue aster, can be used to add to magical bags or sachets if you're starting a new business or a new undertaking, if you believe in bag magic. Now, there is another use for New England blue aster, and that is to be a protective plant. As we know in many traditions, blue is a protective energy. It's something that you use to protect yourself against sorcery or against witchcraft or negative spirits. It's one of the reasons that blue is so often pictured or used when you're seeing someone use protective garment dye. Hi there, one of the people who's behind the scenes just did some dyeing with indigo, and I'm excited about that. It's also one of the things you use in order to pick your jewelry if you're in a witch war. I said it. Black is great, but blue ain't late. You also have noticed it in the pendants and in the charms to try to protect yourself against the evil eye. Blue is there for a reason, and it's not a racial one. But one of the things people do with New England blue aster is they plant it as a protective measure in their gardens. Because of the way that the plant looks, and that it has that distinctive blue aura and that yellow golden eye like a sun, they use it in order to be vigilant and watchful in their gardens. It literally is like having extra eyes watch out for you. Now, this is not the time for me to be teaching you how to do warding through plants in your garden. I'm sure you can figure that out, or you can book a class with me at a New Moon 22 in New Baltimore, Michigan. But that's up to you. I'm not the boss of you, and I can't tell you to do anything. However, it is a pretty simple operation to do that. It's the same principle as to when you plant other magical wards as plant companions or plant protectors. Another thing you can use aster for, and I always tell people there's more than one way to skin a cat, but why skin a cat when you can do something herbal and wonderful and fun? You can make a protective oil with it. Now, if it were me, I would make the New England blue aster oil. I'd probably put some pearly everlasting in it as well, and some rue and some mint to make myself a really nice little put together potion there. Well, not potion, but an oil. I would add to it just a touch of bay, and that would be my oil for general warding for my home. Of course, now I'm going to pass it through smoke. I'm not going to just put it on there. I'm also probably going to say some words over it, either enchanting it by poem or verse or prayer, or I will sing to it. It depends on what you want to do. Maybe that's not something you want to do. Maybe you just want to wave your hands over it. But no matter what, in order to activate it, I would pass it through incense smoke, because whenever you're working with oils and you want a magical oil to wake up, it is always a good practice to pass it through incense smoke. That helps breathe life into it and some other things. If you practice insufflation, make sure you breathe into your oil as well. Now, there's various techniques for infusion. You can use cold infusion, in which case you'll put the herbs in the oil and let them sit in the window for a long time. But it's cold and it's getting dark soon, so maybe a warm infusion might be the way. I would recommend putting it in a double boiler or in a crock pot inside of a bowl of water and letting it sit there and get warm until it has the essence of all of the herbs. And then I would drain them and use that. And use that especially if I was doing protection spells or spells for vigilance. If you wanted to do something for the beginning of a new venture, I would probably use it with something like mint or tea leaves themselves. I hope you found this episode of service. I hope that you will try to use New England Blue Aster in your procedures as far as your magical ones. And I hope you won't be shy in learning more about the plant world and the world around you. This is a really wonderful plant to try to get to know. I highly recommend growing it or wildcrafting it. Just remember, everything you pick might not pick you. So make sure the energy of the plant that you're picking and is actually in harmony with you. Always ask first. Thank you so much for listening and coming to this show. I really love it when you come back, and I've got a special herb for you next time here on Explorations in Herbalism. Ooh, my glasses are crooked.